Imagine you are lying beside a dying fire roughly 40,000 years ago and you fall asleep. At some point in the night, your eyes begin moving rapidly beneath closed lids, your breathing changes, and somewhere inside your skull a world appears that no one else will ever see. No writing exists yet to record it. No one around you will remember it tomorrow unless you choose to speak it out loud. So what did that dream actually look like? What was inside it? And here's the far stranger question. How deep into your evolutionary past does this experience actually go? The honest answer connects a fish that lived hundreds of millions of years ago, a nervous crocodile, an Egyptian pharaoh, and the last time you woke up at 3 in the morning convinced something was chasing you. Let's start with the part almost nobody expects. Dreaming itself is far older than humanity, far older in fact than mammals. For decades, scientists assumed REM sleep, the brain state most closely tied to vivid dreaming, was a mammal-only invention. Then researchers studying zebrafish found something that upended that assumption completely. The fish showed the same rapid eye movement, the same loss of muscle tone, the same brain activity pattern associated with dreaming in humans. The implication was almost too large to process at first. REM. Sleep likely evolved somewhere around 450 million years ago, before fish and land animals had even evolutionarily split apart. Scientists studying Australian dragon lizards later found a limited version of the same state, suggesting the earliest ancestor shared by reptiles, birds, and mammals alike may have been dreaming in some primitive form long before anything resembling a human walked the earth. Which means the dream you had last week runs on hardware that predates humans by an almost incomprehensible margin. You're not experiencing a human invention when you dream. You're experiencing one of the oldest continuously running programs in the entire animal kingdom. Now fast forward dramatically to a specific moment in your own ancestral history. Roughly 1.9 million years ago, when an early human ancestor called Homo erectus did something that sounds almost too small to matter, but changed the entire structure of dreaming as we know it. They started sleeping on the ground in a single unbroken stretch, instead of in the fragmented, easily interrupted rest patterns typical of tree-dwelling primates. That shift mattered enormously. Sleeping in trees means staying alert to falling. It means shallow, broken rest. Once your ancestors moved to the ground, likely protected by fire and group vigilance, sleep could finally consolidate into longer, deeper, uninterrupted stretches. The exact kind of extended rest that gives REM sleep room to fully unfold. In other words, one of the most important developments in the depth and richness of human dreaming wasn't a change in the brain at all. It was a change in where our ancestors chose to lie down. So by the time actual recorded history begins, humans had inherited a dreaming brain that was both ancient in its machinery and newly capable of producing longer, richer nightly experiences than almost any primate before them. And the very first thing every early civilization we have records for did with that capability was strikingly consistent. They treated dreams as messages from somewhere else entirely. In ancient Egypt, dreams were considered communication from the space between the world of the living and the realm of gods and the dead. Egyptian priests compiled what's now called the Dream Book, a papyrus dating back roughly 4,000 years, cataloging specific dream images and what each one supposedly foretold. Egyptians built dedicated temples where people could sleep specifically to summon a prophetic vision, a practice historians call dream incubation. One story describes a young man named Thutmose falling asleep in the shadow of a giant half-buried statue, dreaming that the statue itself spoke to him, promising him a kingdom if he freed it from the sand. He later became Pharaoh Thutmose IV, and the statue, the Sphinx, still sits excavated in Giza today. The Greeks built an almost identical system independently. Their dream god Morpheus supposedly shaped the visions mortals experienced at night, while sick or troubled Greeks traveled to specific healing temples, fasted, performed purification rituals, and slept there specifically hoping the gods would deliver a diagnosis or a cure through a dream. The philosopher Aristotle, centuries later, proposed something quietly revolutionary, that dreams weren't necessarily messages from gods at all, but might instead be the sleeping mind noticing subtle physical symptoms the waking mind had missed. It was one of the earliest hints of a purely biological theory of dreaming, buried inside a culture that otherwise treated dreams as divine male. 2. Completely unconnected civilizations, separated by geography and centuries, arrived at strikingly similar conclusions. Dreams mattered enough to build architecture around them. Here's where the story turns towards something far more personal and far less comfortable. If dreaming is genuinely ancient evolutionary machinery, and if ancient cultures treated dreams as urgent enough to build temples for, what were people all over the world actually experiencing behind closed eyes before any god or symbol got attached to it? Modern sleep researchers have tried to answer exactly that question, not through mythology, but through direct observation. Using standardized questionnaires translated across dozens of languages and cultures, they found the same handful of dream categories appearing again and again everywhere they looked. Being chased, falling from somewhere with no way to stop it, losing something essential right when you needed it most. Falling, specifically, shows up in some form for roughly 3 out of every 4 people who've ever tracked their dreams. Not a rare nightmare a handful of unlucky people experience. Something closer to a shared built-in feature of being human, regardless of what temple you would have prayed in 3,000 years ago or what country you were born in this year. In 2000, a Finnish neuroscientist named Antti Revonsuo proposed a specific explanation for exactly this pattern. He called it the threat simulation theory. The idea that dream consciousness evolved as a private rehearsal space, letting your ancestors practice detecting and escaping danger, again and again in a completely safe setting, before they ever encountered the real version while fully awake and vulnerable. A mind that had run the scenario 1,000 times in sleep would react faster than a mind encountering the danger for the very first time. Researchers later tested a very specific prediction from this theory. Children who grew up in genuinely dangerous, war-torn environments showed measurably more threat content in their dreams, more realistic danger, more defensive action taken by the dreamer inside the dream itself compared to children raised somewhere safe. Their nervous systems were running extra training sessions because the world outside had made clear that more training was necessary. So here is what your dreaming brain has actually been doing this entire time, across an almost unthinkable span of history. 450 million years ago, something like it first appeared in a fish. 2 million years ago, a change in sleeping posture gave it room to deepen into something closer to what you experience now. 4,000 years ago, an Egyptian priest wrote your recurring nightmare down in a papyrus and called it a message from Seth, the god of chaos. And last month, when you woke up at 3 in the morning certain something was behind you, the exact same ancient rehearsal system was simply doing its job, using outdated intelligence about a world that no longer contains the predators it was built to simulate. You were never just imagining things at random while you slept. You were running one of the oldest, longest-running processes any nervous system on this planet has ever produced, inherited across hundreds of millions of years, interpreted as prophecy for most of recorded history, and only in the last few decades finally understood for what it actually is. Tonight, when you fall asleep beside whatever the modern version of that dying fire looks like for you, that same process will begin again, exactly like it began the night before. And exactly like it began for a creature that never once imagined a human would eventually exist to wonder about it.